All right, good evening. It's Rachel, and it's Wednesday night, and tonight's Facebook Live is a topic pretty dear to my heart. It is about understanding the teenage mind. And I'm a mom of two teens, well, a preteen and a teen, and then, of course, a stepmom to triplets. That are also 15 years old. So we got a lot of teenagers in our house. So I went on this mission to understand the mind a little better, the teenage mind, in hopes that it would help create a more peaceful environment in our home. So I hope you find this information tonight helpful. It's not super scientific. I wanted to keep it pretty basic. So if you're not a science person, you would understand. And be able to relate to it. So let's get started with just getting centered first. So close your eyes and just take a couple deep breaths in and out from your nose. And this will give you space just to arrive in this space of learning, an open space, an open mind for the information that's about to be shared. And you can just start by noticing the space you're in. So any sounds, like you hear my voice, you might hear birds in the background, or my dog, maybe your dog or your kids. And then just notice how you feel, like in your body, right? The temperature on your skin. Is it warm? Is it cool? And start to notice your body, right? Start to notice your muscles and your bones and what feels good and maybe what feels a little out of sorts right now. Just take a couple deep breaths into those spaces in your body, which helps you get a little bit more present, more grounded. And start to notice your breath. And just notice the rise and the fall, the chest and the belly. I'm not trying to change anything right now or control it. Just be aware of it. And then start to notice your own thoughts, right? Your own thoughts about maybe you or your family or your teens. And if you could visualize your life right now with a perfect scenario. There's really no such thing as perfect, but what would your home look like? How would you all show up? And I know my goal is always to have the most peaceful, calm home as possible. And what is yours like? And also filled with joy and laughter and silliness. And so keep that in mind as we now go through just some of the information that I'm going to share. And if you want to go ahead and open your eyes, go for it. And it's just a nice little treat to get you ready to receive the information. So let's see. Some of the information I'm going to share is probably not definitely new to you, but my hope is that this information will be helpful, or maybe just a reminder. Like sometimes we need that, just a reminder of what's going on for us or for our kids. So this is a really big time of change for your teens, as I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of. They're trying to figure themselves out, and their brains are constantly changing, undergoing constant, extensive reorganization. This is a time of recklessness, rudeness, cluelessness, and guess what? It's not all totally their fault. So I found that really good news to know that, although sometimes it feels personal, it often is not. So I want you to remind yourself daily, maybe even hourly, of this information. I promise this will help. So teens are starting to receive a lot of different mixed messages from our culture, right? At 16, they can drive. At 18, they can vote. They're considered an adult. Buy cigarettes, join the military, or even determine their own medical care. But they can't drink alcohol till they're 21. They can't even be a member of the House of Representatives till 25. But at any age, they can testify in court. They can enter into a contract to sue. And they can even request emancipation from their parents or seek drug or alcohol treatment. So there's a lot of mixed messages, I believe, going on in our culture, in our society. So let's talk about the big subject that so many people blame all the roller coasters on, hormones, right? So let's talk specifically about sex hormones. So these sex hormones are present from birth, but they hibernate. They hibernate until puberty, and then they are released. So remember, this is really new to the teenage brain. It's seeing these hormones for the first time. The brain hasn't really quite figured out how to modulate the body's response to this new influx of all these chemicals. And that even though these sex hormones were present through childhood, the real strong onset is around puberty. And this is when a lot of changes we start to see, right? Like we start to see changes in their bodies and of course in their personalities. So these chemicals in the brain influence mood, especially. So a happy-go-lucky 14-year-old can just in seconds go to a teary-eyed emotional meltdown. Or a happy young man might go from all of a sudden being in a great mood to aggressive and lashing out. These are really normal situations. So if you're finding this a lot in your home, just know you're not alone. So are the rest of us. Our sex hormones, they're active in the limbic system. And this is the emotional center in the brain. So this helps a lot of people understand why they are so emotionally charged, why they often seek out these emotionally charged experiences. It's because these hormones all live in that emotional part of their brain. Teens and stress. So teens do not have the same tolerance for stress as adults do. Teens are more likely to exhibit stress-induced illnesses and physical problems like colds, headaches, or upset stomachs. And our teens today have more input coming at them than ever before, from home to school to peers to the internet and, of course, social media. So there's a hormone called THP, which is in adults is released. It helps to modulate your stress. It helps to reverse the effects. It has the reverse effects, though, in adolescence. So it raises anxiety instead of tamping it down. So in adults, this hormone acts as a tranquilizer, but for teens, it does the opposite, right? So anxiety just is going to create more anxiety for them. And this is sort of a vicious cycle for a lot of our teens. They end up in it and struggle to get themselves out of it. And as teens, they get very easily frustrated. And as parents, we do too. We want to help them and we just don't know what to do. So let's move away from the hormones a little bit and talk a little bit about the adolescent brain. So the adolescent brain has an abundance of gray matter. Now the gray matter are the neurons that produce the basic building blocks of the brain. It also has an undersupply of white matter. And this is the connective wiring that helps the information flow efficiently from one part of the brain to another. So the teenage brain is just like a brand new Ferrari. It's primed and pumped, but it hasn't been road tested yet. It's all revved up, but it doesn't know where to go. It's in this constant flux, this constant state of sort of the unknown. So the maturity of the brain is from back to front. So the cortex, which is in the back here of the brain, can be divided into several main areas based on function. Now the frontal lobes that sit most anteriorly, and this is the area that is concerned with our executive function, our judgment, our insight, and our impulse control. So this is the last area of the brain to develop. And remember, adolescence technically goes from 18 to 25. So this area of the brain isn't fully developed for most people until the age of 25. The frontal lobes are the seat of our ability to generate insight, judgment, self-awareness, and our ability to assess danger and risk. And the teen brain is only 80% of the way to maturity. That's a 20% gap. Where the wiring is thinnest is crucial and explains why teenagers behave in such puzzling ways. Their mood swings, their irritability, their impulsiveness, and their explosiveness. Their inability to focus, to follow through, and to connect with adults. And their temptations to use drugs, to engage in risky behavior is all because this part of their brain has not been fully matured yet. So in a civilized adult individual, they're using both their frontal and prefrontal parts of their brain to make executive decisions for themselves. So even though our teens often start to look like adults, they are very far from it. Their brains have not caught up. And often adults, they even forget this because they look at them and they think they should have the same capacities and capabilities that adults do. But their brains, their hormones, they just aren't there yet. Now, these teens, they want to be treated like adults because the way they look and the way they think they deserve to be treated. But they don't have the brain functioning yet to process life's ups and downs like adults do. They don't have the capabilities. And as parents, we must provide them with guidance and support. So what can we do? You have to stuff your teen minds with real stories, real consequences. And then you have to do it again and again. Over dinner, after practice, before music lessons. You have to do it so much that they even start to complain. Because that's when we know they've received the message. You have to remind them over and over. It is through the repetition that they will learn, that they will remember. Because otherwise they won't. One of the prefrontal lobes is the executive function. It includes something called prospective memory. And prospective memory, this is the ability to hold in your mind the intention to perform a certain action at a future time. So for instance, remembering to return a phone call after you get home from work. They don't have this ability to constantly remember to do these things. So that's why it's so important that kids have agendas, kids have calendars. And in it, there's lots of reminders. That's why it's important we're constantly texting them. With texting these days to remind them, I need you to call me. We remind them of the boundaries and what's important. And of course, of the consequences if they don't follow through. Make sense? Hope so. So what teens tell me they want their parents to know. If you didn't know, I do work with several teens right now. And I took a poll the other day and asked them, there's one thing you want your parents to know. What is it? And the answer across the board was just listen. Don't try to fix my problems. Teens want us to listen, to be supportive and not judgmental. That was the other thing I kept hearing. They feel their parents are judging them, criticizing them, not just listening, just trying to fix them. So it's important for us to just hold space for them, to give them a safe space to just let it out. And as parents, that is a real hard thing to do. We want to make everything better for our kids, right? Since they were little itsy bitsy, we want to put a Band-Aid on something. We want to kiss it and just make it all better. Unfortunately, when they're in teens, it's not that simple. We don't want them to have to experience pain or discomfort. And you know why? Because most of us can't tolerate it ourselves. We can't sit with our own discomfort. We want it to go away. We resist it. We push it away. And we do that by buffering. We use things like alcohol. We use things like overworking or overeating. We avoid in our own selves feeling our own emotions because often we feel like it's just too much. But I encourage you, start to allow yourself to feel uncomfortable. Sit with it. Don't repress it. Instead, allow it, just like we did in the beginning in our meditation. The more we allow things, believe it or not, the softer they get. When we resist, it's when our thoughts, our feelings will start to persist. They become heightened, even louder, more intense. So when you can be uncomfortable with your own feelings, then you will sorry guys, you can hold space for others to be uncomfortable too. This will give you the strength you need to just listen, to not try to fix their problems, to not solve them, but to just be an open space for them to share what they need to share to get off their chests, to explore. So I challenge you to do this, to notice how you respond in different situations, especially stressful ones. Our kids are constantly learning from us. They learn from both our words, actions, and our energy. We are their biggest role model. If you don't handle your stress well, then I encourage you, get help to learn how to manage it. When you can manage your own stress, you will be able to be a better role model for your kids. You will also be able to hold space for them, sit with them in their discomfort. And it is from this that you will be able to create a peaceful home. So, here's a little information, right? Take it, ingest it, and then challenge yourself to sit with yourself. See if you can sit with the discomfort. And if you're curious about learning more about how to manage your own mind so you can hold space better for you and for your kids, you can show up as your best self, be a role model in a really fantastic way, have a peaceful home, then I'm offering you right now, reach out to me. Let's get on the phone. Let's chat about it. Let's talk about it. I've got a lot of amazing tools that I believe can help you. They have helped me in such an incredible way. They have changed my life. Both of my kids are now off anxiety medicine. I'm very proud to say that I do believe a huge part of it is because I worked on myself. I manage my own mind every single day. I'm constantly working on it. I hope this was helpful. I hope you have an amazing rest of your evening. And I look forward to chatting with you soon. Namaste.